Well, Kraken fans, I could get used to this. The question is, should I get used to this?
You are Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what do you say, Seattle hockey fans? Welcome to another episode of Locked On Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where we bring you your favorite team and the UMA hat. Well, every single day for the podcast, every podcast episode after a win for the UMA hat. That got a little more confusing than I meant to make it. Eric Ayala, your host of Locked On Kraken, want to let you know that today's episode of Locked On Kraken brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. We know the NFL playoffs are full steam ahead right now, so whether it's the first whistle or the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. Where to start with this game? I think I'll start with, I did start with saying I could get used to this. Was this a perfect game by the Seattle Kraken? No. As a matter of fact, it's not considered a quality start from Joey Daccord, which is something that I definitely have gotten used to. As a matter of fact, I think the Seattle Kraken have relied on great goaltending, but specifically from Joey Daccord. That was not one of these games. And yet, the Seattle Kraken still win. They defeated the Buffalo Sabres 6-4 to get a crucial win, as this team, quite honestly, past the halfway point, is starting to finally find their stride. So, we've had so many conversations about, is it tanking season? If you listen to the show every day, you know I don't believe in that as like a philosophy. I understand that it's a part of our sports landscape, but I think it's soft, as Kobe Bryant has been known to say. Soft. I don't like it. I think it's you're working the system, which good for you, I guess, but because you're not doing your job, which is to win. So anyway, we can talk about that some other time. Should we get used to this? Well, there's a part of it that I want to get used to. Playing hard, having a net front presence, getting distribution. That's what I talked about. If you listen to the episode yesterday, not only did I give Chandler Stevenson a little love, I said we need to see more consistency from Matty Beniers. We need more consistency overall. And I mentioned Stevenson and by association his line, and I mentioned Beniers and by association his line. And I think we got a lot of that. So if we take a look at what we got with regard to the lines, excuse me, the Seattle Kraken have been bouncing around a little bit here, just with injuries and other things going on. But the lines against Buffalo, we had the Veneers line, which of course is probably the hottest line right now with Jaden Schwartz and Capo Kakko. Then Burakovsky and Bjorkstrand on either side with Stevenson, Shane Wright centering Jared McCann and Ellie Tolvanen, and Brandon Tanev and John Hayden alongside Mitchell Stevens. And, I think that, again, we've seen injuries. We've seen players in and out. Ty Cartier seems to be out of the mix right now. And so giving John Hayden a chance here right now. We know that Yanni Gourde is injured. We know that Jordan Eberle injured. And so this lineup is giving us the versatility that seemingly was lacking earlier this year or earlier this season, because 2025 just started. So yes, while the Beniers line is kind of taking that on, and remember, if you listen to Locked On Kraken every day, which I highly recommend, and if you listen to the Women's Hockey Report, what did Jessica Campbell tell me? She told me 2025 was the year of Matty Beniers. Right now, he's got 9 goals, 16 assists for 25 points. And he seems to really be getting things going. He got a power play goal, but I think we've talked about this more so with respect to Jared McCann, which I think we're still figuring out. The Kraken, that is still figuring out. But even with Beniers, I've said on the podcast before, as much as you want to see more from Matty Beniers, how much does that mean that the coaching staff has to figure out who is alongside Matty Beniers? And it does seem like the coaching staff has figured that out. Jaden Schwartz is on a tear. Capo Caco is just been a revelation for Matty Beniers, but also for this Seattle Kraken team. If you look at the Beniers line alone, Matty scores on the power play, as I mentioned. Matty Beniers scores on the power play. Now, Capo Caco didn't get on the score sheet as much as we've seen in the last handful of games, but I think he still had a fantastic game. I love that we are seeing Oliver Bjorkstrand. I mean, oh my goodness, Riker Evans has been fantastic. And then we had not one, but 2 defensemen score in this game. So on the one hand, can we get used to this? Should we get used to this? Am I setting myself up? Are we setting ourselves up for heartache if we get used to a winning Seattle Kraken team? Well, I would like to think no, because we've been waiting for this. That being said, it still has yet to be determined if this is the real Seattle Kraken. Are they truly committed to doing what it takes? We've had this conversation over and over on the podcast because the talent is there. On paper, this team should have been doing better than they had in the first part of this season, but they just weren't. And some of the things that we're hearing, I'm not going to play the video. We're going to, whoops, my notes. I'm outside for those watching on video. Beautiful day here. I finally got some nice weather, so I figured I'd stay outside before I head to the airport later. Anyway, got my notes back. So I'm not going to play the video from Matty Beniers. We will hear from Adam Larsson a little bit later on the episode. But this is some of what we're hearing from Beniers. And it's not just hockey talk. It's not just sports talk. I think these are things we're actually seeing. We're seeing the Seattle Kraken, per Matty Beniers, play as a 5-man unit, to be aggressive, to be fast. There goes one of the 3 Fs, right? Beniers was asked after the game about the bumper position, and was it between the LA and Buffalo game? Either way, Dan Bylsma talked specifically about Matty Beniers. We broke this down on a recent episode, and utilizing him on the power play and utilizing him, kind of in that bumper position, having more of a net front presence. We'll talk about that. Defensemen stepping up. The Kraken, when the defensemen step up, the Kraken play well. That's what Beniers told us, and no lie detected. Dan Bylsma talked about response goals being a big story. And absolutely right. John Hayden was one of the players to get a response goal. Actually, he got the first response goal. As a reminder, a response goal is when the Seattle Kraken score within a 2-minute time frame of either one of their goals, but specifically in this case, one of the goals from their opposition. Again, a 6-4 game. I was listening on the radio. Mike Benton had the call on the radio, which meant, of course, for you watching on television and watching the Kraken feed, you got to hear Everett Fitzhugh. I love that he's getting more more TV time. It only breaks my heart because I'm not only watching on TV, but stick taps to Everett Fitzhugh once again with JT Brown. But the big story Dan Bylsma said was the response goals. And I mean, 3 of their 6 goals, response goals, not something we've always seen from the Seattle Kraken. And again, Larsson, Oleksiak, they got goals, but I loved that Dan Bylsma also mentioned Riker Evans. I thought Mike Benton and Al Kiniski did a great job also breaking down how Riker was impacting the game. If we look at some of the post-game stats, this is what I like. We won the 5-on-5 defensive battle. Entry denials 51% to 44% for the Sabres. Zone exits favored the Buffalo 83% to our 80%. Puck battle win. I ranted most recently, but I really look at this stat because the sandpaper, the P&V, baby, sometimes this stat to me tells the story there. Puck battle win 56% to 44%. Listen, as long as I never see 80%, upward of 80% puck battle win percentage for the other team, I think I can stop ranting about it. But I like that we won the puck battle. 1 of 3 for the Buffalo Sabres. That meant we were 2 of 3 on the penalty kill. I should say 1 of 3 on the power play for the Sabres. That meant we were 2 of 3 on the penalty kill. 50% on the power play. Dan Bilesma said something interesting about the power play, and we'll break that down a little bit in the next segment because the year of Veneers, again, I heard it right from Jessica Campbell's mouth in our exclusive interview that happened during the PWHL Takeover Tour. We talked about it. We talked about what she talked about with Matty B, and they came to the conclusion as part of their professional development, 2025 going to be the year of Matty Beniers. And again, we'll get into that a little bit more. Overall, still more to do. This is not a perfect game. But Dan Bosma said it a few games ago. It's not about being perfect all the time. To play a complete game, it's not playing perfect for 60 minutes, but it's about owning the lion's share of that. And I've been down here in Florida covering women's basketball. One of the things, it's a very unique, anyway, I can get into that somewhere else on another podcast. Read my story for CBS Sports that I have up on Unrivaled. But one of the things that stands out to me that I think relates to the Seattle Kraken, because this is such a high IQ, there's such a high IQ on the coaching staff, such a belief in professional development. A lot of that comes down to game management. And game management can only be accelerated once confidence, in my opinion, I should say, game management can only be accelerated once your confidence, once your grit, and once your understanding of your teammates' roles is solidified. And maybe that's been the rub, why the Seattle Kraken have struggled, because it's taken time to establish that. You can say it's a new coaching staff. That's a part of it, but there's also new personnel, and sometimes you have overlapping strong points. So who do we go to in this scenario versus who falls back? Is it kind of, hey, if I see that I'm in the position to take the shot, whether it's quote unquote my role or not, that I do that? I do feel that some of the Kraken being in their head was because they didn't have that stuff figured out. So as much as you can say, yeah, sure, it's the coaching staff, it's also been the roster. And we talked about that before. So I hope that this means that the Kraken have an internal method of communication to shorthand some of that. And in fact, that's exactly what John Hayden said when he talked. He was, I love it. He was very short with his comments, but he talked about the net front presence, him crashing the net, Alexiak walking through to be an option. These are all things that are important in a hockey game. He said that stuff pays dividends. I love that turn of phrase, pays dividends. It's a compound effect. And he said his fourth line, slotting into that fourth line, they're playing predictable. How many weeks have we talked about the Kraken saying, we need to be predictable. We need to play predictable. Well, they're starting to get that now. And again, that's what is in part leading to their success. But can we sustain it? That is the big question for the Seattle Kraken team. But if we do, it will be because 2025 is the year of Veneers. We'll talk about that coming up on today's episode of Locked On Kraken. Today's episode of Locked On Kraken, as I mentioned, brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and you'll get $300 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That's $300 to keep the action going. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300. You can use that on the NFL. You can use that on the NHL. There's PWHL stats there. We've got women's college and eventually women's WNBA up there. So, I mean, put that first $5 bet to work, and then you'll get those bonus bets that you can use. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and of course, us here at the Locked On Podcast Network. All right, the Seattle Kraken got me wearing the UMA hat 2 games in a row, and I love it. Also, personally, I love it because, you know, it's not easy to carry around a Pirates hat when you're on the road traveling, and I've taken it on a couple of road trips now. North Carolina, got to wear it in North Carolina, out to Seattle, that one not so much, and now here in Florida. So we're going to keep the UMA hat going, and when the team wins, I just want to be ready. I want to be prepared, and this team is putting themselves in a pretty good position, and a lot of that has to do with the year of Veneers, Matty Beniers, finding his stride, finding his way. I don't think you can overstate how much having Capo Caco. I just really like how Capo Caco sees the ice. And I think his IQ, his size, his strength, it alleviates some of the work that Matty Beniers has been doing defensively. We talk about this a lot. Beniers is not a big guy. He's gotten bigger. I've definitely noticed that he's beefed up, specifically Shane Wright, much stronger. Even I think from when I saw him at training camp, I haven't dropped that nugget, but when I was in Seattle, I mean, you notice that guy has beefed up for sure. So, Shane Wright is so interesting and unique to what is going to happen with this Kraken team. But we're going to talk about the year of Veneers. You know, this is a player that the Seattle Kraken need. You know, he signed that extension. There was a little bit of drama in the offseason. He wasn't starting off well, which we've seen time and time again with the Seattle Kraken squad. But not only is he scoring, but he's doing it on the power play, which is huge. And you got to give credit to the team, but also to, you know, you got to give credit to the coaching staff for tweaking what needed to be tweaked on the power play. And unfortunately for Daniel Sprong, it didn't include putting Daniel Sprong on the power play. I mentioned what I thought was just some weird comments on the TV broadcast once. But anyway, I digress. So Matty Beniers this season, we're looking at, we're looking at, again, 10 goals, 16 assists for Matty Beniers. If we look at his log, his game log, he has points in the last 3 straight, and he's scored a goal in 3 of the last 5 for the Seattle Kraken. So, and all of those in 2025. It's still January. So what does that mean? Oh yeah, we're talking the year of Beniers. If we go back, he started a little slow, did get some points on January 2nd, but then the well a little dry on the 4th, the 6th, and the 9th, and the 11th, actually. But then January 12th on that back-to-back, that Detroit game, well, that was a game to forget. But I told you after that weekend, that the way Matty Beniers was talking about some of these losses, it just seemed to me like this team was ready to go. I think we were talking after that Pittsburgh game because, again, almost got it done. I said, I want to see them get at least 1 point. They almost took it to overtime. Couldn't quite get it done. Beniers feeling confident. Beniers feeling comfortable. Beniers having a player like Kako. And then Jaden Schwartz has also, we talked about this on the last episode. He's taken on a leadership role. He's decided, and he's showing the team what happens when you decide. This is my read on it. When you decide you're going to be an impact player, things happen. He's committed to it, Jaden Schwartz. He has always committed to going net front. Now that's things that everybody is talking about, including our defensemen. We talked about that. I think it was Schwartz saying that the defensemen are pinching a little bit differently and they're giving an outlet. I've talked about passing before with this Kraken team. There are times in this season where I wanted to pull my freaking hair out. At some point, if you don't pass, if your passes aren't crisp, the defense doesn't really have to do much. They could be, like a beached whale, and you still wouldn't score on them. And at times, that's what it felt like the offense was looking like, trying too hard, gripping the stick too hard, whatever you want to talk about. But now we heard it on the TV broadcast. They're playing along the walls much better. They're winning board battles. They're winning puck battles. And they're able to find the open space because the teammates without the puck are moving. That's huge. I went on a little bit of a rant there that had nothing to do with Matty Beniers. But when things like that happen, you can put a player like Matty Beniers, like Oliver Bjorkstrand, even Chandler Stevenson. Again, hot or not, his play. Hot or not on Chandler Stevenson, let me know in the comments because, we were pretty hard on him. It's me. Hi. I'm the problem. And, rightfully so. But we're going to have to go back to that. Zane Begg on a little bit of a break from the show now, but we should have him back hopefully in another few weeks here once we get into February. But we'll update you more on that once we know. But, Zane and I talked about it. Chandler Stevenson, for the price we were paying, not doing enough. But now he's doing better. And all of this is a trickle effect. When you have more players that are an option, it makes it harder on the other team. You need to move. You need more players contributing. And it doesn't have to be pretty. It just has to be effective. Matty Beniers, I think, is really leaning into that. The year of Veneers, I'm here for it. I'm absolutely here for it. We need it. Year of Veneers, sign me up for a double dose because, again, I think this team excels when Matty Beniers excels, but we're not just getting contributions from Matty Beniers, Jaden Schwartz and Kako, the Beniers line. We're not just getting contributions from the Stevenson line. I really like what Shane Wright has been able to do. And yes, the fourth line right now, which is Tanev, Mitchell Stevens, and John Hayden, we're getting contributions there. So up and down the lineup, we love that. But we're also getting the defensemen involved. And I'm not just talking Brandon Montour. I'm not just talking Vince Dunn. We're getting some of our big guys involved. And that's got to continue as well. We'll talk about it coming up on Locked On Kraken. Today's episode of Locked On Kraken also brought to you by our friends at Select Quote. In sports, having a winning strategy, is everything. It's how the best teams make it to the Super Bowl, the World Series, the Stanley Cup playoffs, and the Olympics. The same goes for life. Having a strategy like life insurance from Select Quote can protect your financial legacy and keep your family's future secure. Select Quote makes it easy to find the perfect life insurance policy. As one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, they've helped over 2 million customers find $700 billion in coverage since 1985. That's my whole life and then some. What sets Select Quote apart is their personal touch. Unlike other brokers that offer a one-size-fits-all, These licensed agents tailor coverage to fit your unique needs. If you're in good health, you might even qualify for same-day coverage up to $5 million. No medical exam required. And it's more affordable than you think. You can get up to $1 million in coverage for as little as $20 a month. Get the right life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/LockedOnNHL. Go to selectquote.com/LockedOnNHL today to get started. That's selectquote.com/LockedOnNHL. SelectQuote. They shop, you save. And thanks as always for making Locked On Kraken a part of your daily destination. Erica L. Ayala here, your host of Locked On Kraken. I mentioned it a few times, but Jessica Campbell told us she and Matty, they sat down, they had a conversation leading into the new year. This was going to be his year, 2025, that is. And the Seattle Kraken are starting to turn things around. And whoo, buddy, did we need it? Did we need it? With yesterday's win over the Buffalo Sabres, the Seattle Kraken, 45 points in the standings. Goal differential is not where I'd like it to be. Goal differential not where I'd like it to be, minus 11 there. 21 wins, 24 losses, 3 overtime games there, overtime. 21 wins, 24 losses, 649 winning percentage. That has us right now, when it comes to the wild card, in 6th place. When it comes to the division, again, we still have a lot of work to do. The Seattle Kraken, with those stats I just gave you, 6th overall behind Vancouver, Calgary, the Kings, who we just beat, the Oilers, and the Vegas Golden Knights, who are setting the pace at 62 points, 660 save percentage. So we have some work to do. We have some work to do for sure. Let's take a look quickly at what the schedule is going to look like. For those listening on audio, don't worry, I'll read this out to you. Just took on Buffalo, Washington coming up. We're going to get another bite at the apple against Pittsburgh, and that will actually close out the homestand for right now. Then we go to Edmonton, short trip to Edmonton before coming back home to take on Anaheim in yet another back-to-back for this Seattle Kraken team. They'll close out January with the San Jose Sharks. Some of these games, it's a chance for redemption for your Seattle Kraken, because again, when you're not even at 45 points in the standings, or just at 45. We just made 45. We were at 43 yesterday. We're at 45. Anyway, you just make 45 points in the standings, and it's January 21st. You've got some catching up to do. 6th is not where this team wants to be. So especially against division rivals, especially against Western Conference competition, the Seattle Kraken have to start making up some ground. Should we get used to this style of play? I don't know if you and I should get used to it, but I know who should get used to it, and who should command and demand that they show this with more consistency. That's your Seattle Kraken. That's who we should be worried about. That's who needs to really, hunker down here and get it done. And the way that they've been doing that is having people contribute. Defense, Larsson stepping up, Alexiak, who I thought was great in the beginning of the season, stepping up. But speaking of Larsson, let's hear what he had to say after this Buffalo win.
It's a lot of good things. Started the game on our toes, and just how we play, executed. It's a big factor in this game. I thought we supported each other and came out fairly clean with speed through the neutral zone and out of our own end, and that generates a lot of offense too. So I thought it was a pretty good game. Yeah, I mean, it's always fun to score, but both me and Jamie have scored twice now lately, and it's probably not something we should get too used to. But no, it's always fun. It's always fun to score. Yeah, it's huge. I mean, it's just shows the belief system. It's probably a lot higher than it's been a month ago. So I mean, it's still believed till the end, and now started the home stretch pretty good, so just going to try to keep that going. I don't know. I mean, I would like the team to take one game at a time and focus on the next one and then see where that takes us. I think we were more connected, and said so many times we were taking care of these side of things now too, which, it's easier to win that way if you keep the scoring low.
I mean, there you go. Sage advice once again from Adam Larsson. What I liked is that he talked about, well, one, he said, maybe should we get used to how the Kraken are playing? He's like, well, don't get used to us scoring as D-men. Well, I'd be okay if we got used to that, or if, again, the Kraken got used to that. But what I really loved is he talked about it shows how strong the belief system is now. That's huge. I've talked about confidence a lot more than I thought I would this season, but for this Kraken team, this is huge. That belief system, being able to play the game and not overthink the game too much, not be on their toes, on their heels, maybe thinking about who's starting and who's not. I'm hoping we are beyond that. And the only way to get this Kraken team back on track is for this roster, the players on the roster and the players who play in the game, to lean into exactly what Larsson said and be high on that belief system, just like we are here. I want to make sure that you are kind to yourself. Be kind to others. Hey, if you can, enjoy a day outside. And you know how we do. We hold fast. We stay true. And loud and proud we say, let's go Kraken. I'll catch you on the next episode. Peace out, everybody.